Howdy folks, welcome back to another episode of Supa Hamsta Plays Kingdom Death Monster. As always, do me a favour, hit the thumbs up button on this video, and if you haven't already done so, don't forget to subscribe as well. So in our last Kingdom Death video, we defeated a level 1 White Lion. We went back, we got lots of resources, and we started planning for the future, and we're going to need some new figures. So my plan for today is to use the unarmoured sprue, the unarmoured survivor sprue, the rawhide survivor sprue, and the White Lion kit, which includes that one, probably the lantern kit as well, and possibly the old and the young survivor sprues also. Plus, of course, got a big bag of bases. So we're going to put those together for some of the weapon combinations that we've started to build. They're not going to be exact copies of what we have at the moment because that's going to evolve over time. But for example, Myth, we've gone with his character build. We seem to be going down the hard-hitting, spear-wielding group. So we're going to need to make one of these spear carriers from the Lion Armor kit. Meninga was slow, so I might see if I can perform some sort of crippling injury or a big scar across the leg of a survivor. We've got a young survivor coming through who's quite intelligent. I'd like to start building her up, which is probably what I'm going to use the young survivor sprue for. And I'm thinking with her I'm going to do a bit of a conversion because she's armed with a whip normally, but I'm not a big fan of the whip. I could be wrong. It's the first time I've played the campaign, but I'm not a big fan of the whip as a weapon, and I was thinking of going down the knife fighter route for her, so I'm probably going to chop that off and just leave her holding the handle and then put a blade either coming out the top or maybe out the back. Yeah. So yeah, knife or maybe knife, not sure yet, we'll see. But yeah, so I figure while we're there, it's quite a simple model, so we'll cut the pieces out for the old survivor and the young survivor, and then I'll start having a look at some of these sprues for putting some other pieces together. I'm not going to be building the Gold Knight because the Gold Smoke Knight, we don't need him for some time. I might put together the Butcher, although I'm thinking I'm probably going to do that in a video on its own because it's quite a key model, and the same goes for Screaming Antelope. And eventually the Hand, I suppose. But I'll do separate videos on all of those because everybody at some point is going to have to build them, so they probably want to know how. But yeah, so for the moment we need to put together another sort of 4 or 5 survivors for builds we've got going at the moment and for future builds. So I'll get cracking cutting out some pieces. I'll do one of my little photos highlighting which pieces I'm using where, and we'll go from there. See you soon. Okay, so I picked out 5 models that I'm going to do, and there's the old survivor, the young survivor, lion armor wearing, spear wielding guy. I've got it's a bit of a combination. There's a bit of rawhide, there's a bit of lion, there's a bit of unarmored in this one, but it's sort of a hunter-gatherer, archer type. And this one is mostly rawhide and bone with a sword. So those are the 5 models I'm going to be putting together in this video. It dawned on me when I was doing the intimacy survivors that you don't need these. These are the pieces that the bases sit in, and you don't need them for assembly because you've already got a base to work from. So you can paint that separately. In most cases I'll be spraying the white because a lot of flesh involved. You know, I'll stop doing that so the focus stops getting weird. Yeah, there's a lot of flesh involved, so the people, generally speaking, I'm painting white, but the bases I'm spraying black, so I don't actually have to do anything to them. Once they're all dry, then just stick those into there and we're off. A lot of the arms on these pieces, particularly on this one, and these two, are in multiple pieces. Generally speaking, there's a split running down the forearm, and either the inside of the forearm or the outside of the forearm is a separate piece. So the first thing I'm going to do is stick all those together. I'm going to do things like stick torsos together. This one has things like the loincloth is missing from the front of the legs. What else have we got? This guy's got some rawhide armor shoulder pads that come in two pieces. I'm not sure if I'm going to stick those together. It might actually be easier to do them as separate pieces and stick it onto the model once we're there. These guys have got things like loose feet. Her cloth is made up of a lot of pieces, but these two in particular, because they're so specific and they only go together in one specific way, I'll be doing a bit more detail on those. But yeah, so I'm going to get started sticking all these bits together with my trusty polystyrene cement and my manky old brush. So I'll get started on that. So here we are with our three rawhide / lion / unarmoured survivors. So we'll start off with torsos because they're the easy ones. And on these armour kits there's a slight bevel. Is bevel the right word? There's a slight dome. And then there's a slight socket on the underside of the torso. So just going to stick the relevant torso to the relevant legs. You've got some capacity for manoeuvring and twisting at the waist and that sort of thing, but for these ones I'm not that bothered. I just want them to line up in fairly standard poses, more or less upright. Hunter-gathering female type is going to be pointing straight ahead, so I want her just doing her thing. And our great mountain lion guy is mid-strike, so he's going to be all rigid and on balance and cloak quite nicely follows the contours of round his around his backside, and it gives the impression he's lunging forward because it's going back a little. One thing I did notice that with this rawhide guy with the sword is I haven't picked a head for him yet, so I need to do that. Well, one thing at a time. And I'm thinking with his hands, I just want him sword out, nothing particularly flash, just ready for a fight, but not actually mid-blow or anything. So we'll attach some arms, and again you've got a little ball and joint socket on all of these arms. So if I'm reading it correctly, they're all interchangeable, and I hope that's the case because that's exactly what I've done with the hunter-gatherer. She's only armoured on one side. Yeah, obviously it goes without saying, but yeah, you want to make sure you've got a male arm on a male body and a female arm on a female body, and that you've got a left and a right and not two lefts. So yeah, elbows bend in the right direction. That'll be him. This arm and this hand are the unarmoured ones that I've used, and I want that pointing forward and the other one just going straight down with the bow hanging at her side like that. So we'll get started with that one first. Excuse me. One of the pieces that's not from any of these kits that I am going to use, and I'm going to go and dig that out in a second, is there are no quivers. Although the bow is part of the White Lion set, there is no quiver as part of the White Lion armour set, but there is on the Screaming Antelope, so I'm going to steal one of those. Tiny piece of flash there that I hadn't quite cleaned up. Again, with the wrists, you've got little pegs, little sockets, so lining most of them up should be pretty easy. Just holding a bow aside. Just want to get the angle for a wrist right. Just doesn't look right. Bring it on forward a little bit so it's resting on the ground. Yeah, that works. That will give us another contact point here, which will make it a little bit stronger. It brings that part of the bow up, which gives her a little more presence. Whereas if everything's just hanging down, there's nothing. So he wants things up. And that arm raised. And sort of right over there. So I have to get that arm in. So yeah, this is one of the unarmoured ones, so it's just a bare arm with a bit of cloth on her forearm. But even though she's holding the bow in her other hand in my head, she is right-handed, so that she's passed the bow across and is pointing things out. That would be the arm she actually shoots with, in which case you don't want sleeves and things because they just get in the way. One socket joint on the end, and the tiniest of tiny hands with a little pointer, little pointing finger, tiny bit of glue on the end. Raise it up a little. Let's get that lined up so then she's pointing. Down there. That one there to set. And we get to this guy. Now, this is going to be a slightly more complicated build. The spear I'm using is the one that has no hands on it. Because normally they're gripping the spear there, which is fine if you're just standing around holding your spear, or it's just, you know, like that, or it's just hanging from your side like that as you're walking along and you're holding it in one hand. But I wanted him to be thrusting with the spear, so I need to use some open hands. So I've got this one coming forward, which will be holding the spear around about that height, and that one coming down holding the spear at that end in order for him to start sort of driving it forward, driving it with the back. So that's the plan. Now I've just got to see if I can actually make it work. And again, ball and socket joint. Same on the other side. That arm much lower. The spear is going to be somewhere in there, like that. In which case, if I can twist him slightly, that would probably look better. So he's lunging this way along the base, so he's sort of coming out at you like that rather than. Something like that. Yeah, so he's going to be like that, and he's looking forward to coming it down, because that's quite a mighty spearhead on that thing, isn't it? It's like a boring spear, you know, a spear for hunting boar that has a cross piece on, so it goes all the way in, doesn't go too far. Or in this case, I think you could probably just whack them over the head with it. That would work too. We'll leave those to set whilst we come back to this guy. It's not, as I said, not particularly exciting. We've got the rawhide armour. Just got to work it's out the front and that other one the back. I think it is. Can we just stick the two together and then drop it in? Yeah, I think we can. across the back, a piece across the shoulder there. And then do the same across the front. Pieces up. Let's move his arm back a fraction just to get it all lined up. And then run some glue over the joints just to hide the visible ones. So I think by the time you paint, there's enough texture in this that by the time you start painting it, you won't see the joints anyway. Slide under there. The sword going just across him like that. That'll work. This one I might have to hold for a bit because there's going to be a lot of weight on the top. I don't think whoever built that sword put a lot of thought into balancing the blade. It's kind of top heavy. It's more like an oversized cleaver than anything else. And a tiny hand just hanging at the side. One hand. I'd be like that. Just need to glue down the joint. Yep, just generic rawhide with a bone sword and a head that I'll get around to picking one in a minute. Then we've got our archeress pointing. Got her armour that goes over her shoulders like the piece on there, but a little bit smaller. I'll attach a quiver to her back or a hip in a minute. And one of the things you can do when one of the innovations you can get is herb gathering, and you need to get yourself a little sickle to do it. And I thought hunter-gathery type, that would be her bag, so we'll just have it hanging from her belt or something. We'll add that in a second. And I did pick out a hair or a head for her, and I've gone with the female hair. Yeah, sorry, camera got weird there. Yeah, I've gone with the female hair with a ponytail, figuring if she's spending a lot of time hunting and gathering, she's going to be out in the wild, in the bush, jungles and things. She's going to be used to having her hair tied up out of the way, and I just can't bring myself to use the female heads with short hair because I just can't do it. Terribly sorry, but girls should have short hair. Shouldn't have short hair. Of course, most people would say the same thing about guys and long hair, but you know, each to their own. And I'm not going to put the sickle on until I dig out the quiver. This guy, so he's got 2 open hands. That's going to be the next one I need to get stuck on. So let's start with 1 hand. Now these are open hands. They're half a hand that's gripping something. So I'm going to need to try and get these lined up. That was close. Nearly lost it. I'm determined to drop it. And in fact, it's just fallen on the floor. I'm just going to grab that and I'll be back. Okay, so found the hand, and as you can see, I also dug out the quiver piece from the Screaming Armour kit. There's about 4 or 5 quivers on there, and they're all exactly the same piece by the looks of it, so there's no specific one there. And if you can't tell the quiver, then me showing you probably isn't going to help you all that much. I need to get as much bend in that as I can. Fortunately, it's all hidden behind the it's not greaves, are they? Bracers on his hand, so you can't actually tell that it's a really awkward joint, and probably broken his wrist in the process. And we'll grab this one, bring him in from the top. Very pingy, these pieces. Fortunately, pinged the right direction. Yeah, so they're roughly lined up. So we can grab our spear. And yeah, so that'll work. And while they're just a little bit soft, we'll get some glue on, or some cement on the back of that one and the back of that one. I'm not going to put any on the spear because I'm not sure exactly at what point I'm going to do it yet, and I'm figuring I want a decent length above and below. So how does that grab you? That's about right. Now what I'm going to do now is pinch the hands so that they're actually grabbing the spear. There's one on the back that's going to be a bit of a problem because it's not. But yeah, that works quite nicely. So he's attacking that way. Try and put his hand around just a little bit more. Indeed, I can. So just loosen that off. Create the grip on there. And on that one, yeah, he's getting ready to advance. Even though I'll be using this spear to represent Mithrax, who is wearing a skull helmet. I'm going to stick with the lion one, just because I think it fits the model nicer. I'm just not sure that hair's going to work because it interferes with the collar, so I might have to pick a different head, but we'll come up with one. And he's got his flask of magic juice, which I'm just going to attach to his belt, and I'll just do that now because that's quite a straightforward piece. Yeah. I knew we can do that. torso wasn't quite sitting on the waist. So again, we're using polystyrene cement, which gives you time to adjust these things, and if you don't like it, you can just get it soaking wet in the stuff again and pull them apart. Yeah, that's better. And he's got his flask and his hip there, which I guess technically makes it a hip flask. That's that one. That's that one. And the bow and the quiver, and thinking the quiver, put it across the back, you're going to end up with a huge gap and there's no visible strap, so I'm thinking belt, and specifically sort of across the small of the back. So we'll just do that. There's no specific attachment points on these quivers, which is good, so you can just stick them wherever they look about right. And generally speaking, if you're out in the woods using a bow and arrow, you try not to use a back quiver anyway, because the arrows come up above your head, they get caught in the overgrowth and the brushes and things as you go past, so that would be quite normal. I suspect that having knelt down and so forth, that although normally it would be further round, sort of, you know, there's a torso across there, down at the camera, and normally, as you can see, it's in that sort of plane at the moment, and normally it would be around there, but because she's got her arm back, it sort of pushed it out of the way. And then around this side, I'm just going to hang her sickle, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah, hang her sickle from the other side of her belt. I'm on a stick. Just the way. This would look like it's hanging from a loop. Again, from a belt. And this one does not want to stick. I balance her on that end. Yes, I can. I get in and do it this way. Yes, I can. Okay, so that's our scout pointing. Our generic rawhide sword wielder. Our white lined spear thrusting type. I've also got. So I need to find heads for these two, which I'll do about now. Okay, I'm back. And I found a couple of generic male heads. The rawhide armor kit one, there's a male and a female wearing a mask. And considering we're equipping these people with headbands as one of the armor choices, I thought that works quite nicely. The male one comes in 2 parts. Not quite sure why the back of his head needs to be separate, but there you go. I'm sure there's a technical reason. And the lion mask that I've gone for is short head. It's a single piece. I have marked up the pictures accordingly, as I do. There's tiny gaps on that one, but nothing that can't be cleared up in the painting stage. On the neck. Yeah, this guy's the lion head I've gone for is wearing the lion headdress headband thing, but has short hair, so it's not going to interfere with the collar. There we go. So that's him with the head now, looking in the direction roughly of where his spear is going, and this guy with our generic just stood around with a sword type. I'll just have him looking forward, getting ready for a bit of a Barney. And I'm thinking at some point I might well add a shield onto that guy, but now is not that time. And so we've already got the quiver and the sickle and the hair on our archer. Well, that's the 3 of those done. So there we go. One night's assembly. We've put together the young survivor, the old survivor, having modified the young survivor a little bit more to my taste, and put together 3 generic survivors with an assortment of weapons and armor to max out, to use in our games coming up in the near future, just to make it a bit more interesting. I mean, there's loads of ways you can put these together, so that's just 3 examples. But I think it's given you a bit more of an idea of some of the things you can do with the generic kits that perhaps at first glance you thought, no, you know, archer should just be standing there holding their bow out. Well, no, you can be, you know, scouting, kneeling, carrying a few bits of kit just to break up the thing, different combinations of head. So if you're going to be that sort of scouty person, you're probably going to have your hair either short or tied back. We've got the guy advancing with the spear who's using it in more of a charging action, so using the individual hands to mix that up a bit. One change I have made off camera, just as I was packing everything away, it occurred to me that none of those have lanterns. So the left hand on the generic rawhide guy with the sword that was just a hand, I've removed that and I've put on one of the lanterns that's holding, or one of the hands that's holding a lantern, and swap that over so he's got a lantern. The scout I figure would be used to walking around without a lantern, because, you know, scout, sneaky, hidey. The guy with the spear, I just can't work out where to put it, and I do wonder if he's dropped his, or I thought about attaching it to the spear, but that would make it quite unbalanced. So it might look alright from a modelling point of view, but it's not very practical. And because I've put the flask on his waist belt, or on his waistband, there's not really enough room there to get a lantern in without sort of distracting from it. So I just thought, yeah, I'll just leave it. He's quite a busy model anyway, so plenty going on there. The old guy that we put together, he's got his lantern on his belt, and of course the young girl is carrying hers aloft. And having now put all 5 of these on the table, I now realise another reason why I don't particularly like the old survivor model, and that's from scale purposes, assuming all the standard models are about 6 foot. I think he's about 7'5". The scale on him is just a little bit off. His feet are that much bigger than everybody else. I mean, I suppose theoretically he could just be a very tall survivor. It doesn't quite fit. All the others seem about the right size. The young girl being that much slender than all the others, she's also I don't know, 3 or 4 mil shorter as well. So that just gives the impression of her being that much more young, or that much younger, if I'm going to use grammatically correct English. But there you go. Hope you enjoyed that one. At some point in the near future, I'll do a video on painting these. And as promised, I've got the butcher and the antelope to put together because I know they're coming up in the campaign pretty soon. So thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Hope it's been useful. If it has, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already and you just stumbled across my channel, please do subscribe. I'll be doing more of these in the future, as well as the gameplay videos. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time. Bye for now. Bye-bye.